Oh, yes, it's that time again for goal planning for a whole bright, new, shiny year that is coming around the bend. Hi, I'm Cheri Ruskus, your host and guest this week as we talk about goals. As entrepreneurs, we see the world with our eyes wide open, and therefore we come across many bright, shiny objects on any given day. This podcast is a vehicle to open your perspective about which shiny ideas are going to keep you on course and which ones are taking you to the point of distraction. And this year, what if you thought about them as bright, shiny goals? Seems appropriate here on the Bright, Shiny Object Project podcast, doesn't it? Because here is what I want to share with you today. With many thoughts that we all have around goals. Some people I know think they're hogwash. Some people think they're fantastic. One thing I know to be true is that goals are what end up bringing us back to what we truly want when a bright, shiny new idea gets a hold of us. Does it fit into our goals or not? Perhaps if the idea is strong enough, do the goals need to be adjusted around that new idea? And because I love me a good acronym, let's jump right into the word bright as our shining star to better understand what it is that a bright, shiny goal even is. What does it look like? So the B in bright is for big. It's something that's worth striving for to grow your business or a part of your life. It's that thing that you really want to reach for. The R in bright is that it's ripe for the picking. Ripe for the picking? Picking? Yeah. That you are ready now to achieve this goal. And this goal, it's a good opportunity right now. Just things are aligning all around you that it's really time to achieve this goal. The I in bright is for intuitive. You know in your gut that you need to do this. Whatever this goal is, you are clear and sure. Because one thing I will tell you, when you start to get hesitant about a goal, and sometimes you do just out of fear and the things that come around it, but when you know in your gut it's part of what you have to do, you know. You just know what you know. The G in bright is forgiving. Will this goal give to you, your business, and others the outcome that you so desire or that they desire, things that will give back to yourself and the planet around you? The H in bright is that you are happy to do it. You're excited and actually want to accomplish this goal. It gets you pumped up, and not just initially, but for the long haul. Because some goals, as we know, are not just something that happens in 5 minutes. And then finally, the T in bright is that it is tenacity driven. You are stepping out of your comfort zone to do the things that need to happen to bring this goal to life. It's that tenacity that really gets us where we need to go. So how about if we look at 3 components to help us getting there? The components of clarity, creativity, and courage. And what I will tell you with clarity is that happiness matters. And that's where I think you can begin to see if something makes sense or not. Right now, as you look at a goal, asking yourself where you stand in the happiness scale every day, from 1 to 10. 1 being you can't seem to get out of bed in the morning, like it's just a struggle, to 10 being that you love the heck out of life and find yourself springing out of bed in the morning. And so the clarity comes when you stop and say, what is stopping me from having a 10? What is it that I need to shift and change in my life that will help more days based around a 10 come into play? And, even if you're under a 7, you can get much clearer on the changes that you need to make when you look at different elements of your life. The creativity piece is allowing your creative genius to come to life, to give you freedom to be your truest self. And I think that's what I love so much about when our creative being is in play, that we really can be our truest self. I tell you, in my work as a coach and as a mom and all the things, the roles that I play in my life, I find a lot of times that people fight creativity, claiming it does not exist in them. I'm just, that old saying, I'm just not a creative person. Well, I don't believe that to be true. And you'll hear me say that many times over in this podcast, is that I see creativity and the imagination that it unlocks inside of our mind as an igniter of our spirit, of our true self in so many ways. And, I really ask that you keep your creative spirit in mind as you create goals that matter to you. How does your creative spirit feel about it? And how can it make your creative spirit stronger in the steps that you'll take to attain that goal? And then that third piece is the courage. It's our greatest challenge to move beyond the stories of our past that have created our present and into the future, and really looking at what do we need to let go of? What are we hung up about? Like that we've just got to let go in order to leap to our next best self, whether it's, something about your business that's just not working and you've been afraid to just step out into new territories because while it wasn't working so great, it was comfortable and you wanted to be there. So what can you do what is something that you just, if you had the courage, you would do it? And again, some you may be cognitive of, and others possibly might be hidden deep in your unconscious mind. So it's really taking the time to explore and find out where you need to have the most courage as you look towards goals in the year ahead. In his book, The Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer shares these words, and he said, "In order to be who you are, you must be willing to let go of who you think you are." And this is where trust in the process of change really comes into play. It leaves an opening to replace old goals that contain ideas and steps towards fulfillment that just don't feel so shiny anymore. They just feel dull and they just feel like have-tos. One of the things that in our Grow Planner that we have, that we got rid of to-dos because to-dos just don't feel very shiny, and we replace them with to-dos, where you're really accomplishing things and making things, giving more juice to it, I guess is the best way to say it. Because here's the truth, my friend, it's really about, and I know you've probably heard this before, but it's true. It's about the journey and not just that destination, not just that goal sitting up on top of that hill, but it's all the journey to get there. And if you like the idea of the goal, but the road to take you there and all those steps, sometimes there's a lot of steps to take you there. Sometimes there's some big, huge leaps that get you there. And if they will make your life a living hell, is it worth it? Is that really what you want? And if you're an entrepreneur, which you probably are if you're listening to this podcast, who has been in charge of running your own business for any length of time, you know that there are days in running your business that it can be pure hell, right? You're just like, can I get through this thing? Can I make what I want to have happen? Or, the money's running low, the anxiety's high for whatever reason. But if it's just a short-term situation and by the next day you're back at it again and everything's good, or the next week, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like long stints of just not doing things that make you happy on a given day. Go back to that happiness factor. I'm not suggesting you bag it. I'm just suggesting you look at another way of getting to that goal, or perhaps change the goal to better reflect what you want most for yourself at this point in time, because it's all about right now. Yeah, we want to work and put our goals towards the future, But what are you feeling about it right now? Because we can self-sabotage ourselves along the way without even knowing it if we're too miserable in the process of thinking about getting there. If you think about that space between the first inkling of an idea and then the execution of the idea, it really is this space that we live in most of the time. And when you add choice into that equation, you know all the things coming at us from other people making suggestions on what they think we should do. It really can be overwhelming and be a big cause for getting us stuck without making any kind of move. And this includes the marketing from so many that is guesstimated to hit us at a rate, are you ready, of about 10,000 touch points on average a day. Some we don't even see because they're just cruising past our brains, whether we're scrolling through Instagram or whatever, that there's just little ads or people wanting us to do something. 10,000 a day. Is that insane or what? Making it no wonder that we have a whole lot of noise to make our way through each and every day. The other day, I was walking into a store to return an item, and I was amazed at all the marketing messages and products that were being thrown towards me just in my initial 5 minutes into that store. Now multiply that through an entire day of your life, and there's just, again, so much outside noise that we need to choose to filter it so that we can get to our truest self. And in all of this choosing, we can lose our way towards what we actually really want to have, to do, or to be to begin with. Now, I've been known to get an eye roll or two over the years when I bring up the topic of goals. They have been harped on by many a self-help guru over the years to the point of nauseam. I'm sure that you've heard it a time or two. The key, however, is that goals, when really authentic, can actually be that bright, shiny object that takes you from the clarity of an initial vision through the creativity that takes you towards the implementation, to the courage to keep going even when things don't play out exactly as you had initially envisioned them. That, goals shift, they change, and it may not be exactly the same, but it can be perfect just the way it turns out. So, what I thought maybe it would be best if I shared with you a little bit more how I initially got into the whole idea of having goals. And to be clear, growing up, having goals was never talked about. I mean, never. In school, in my family, we didn't talk about goals. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s, after moving to Colorado, and I started to work for a fairly progressive high-tech firm as one of their initial employees that was hired, that led me into the role of becoming their marketing operations manager. And the owners of the company were big on mindset trainings, which I loved, and it really was probably my first introduction to it. And it came to be that they took us up to Vail for the weekend for a program called The Goal Mind with Dr. Dennis Waitley. I got to tell you, I was intrigued and I was scared all at the same time. So many things to consider and look at about my life that I had never even thought about before. And all these years later, I still have the workbook from that weekend. And recently I came across it, and which I hadn't done in so many years. I really went through the pages, and it struck me just the words that I had written all those years ago. And it is the cool part about writing goals down, to be sure, anything down, that it's not only the process of doing it that gets things out of your unconscious mind onto the paper, but it also can remind you, as it did me as I looked through this book years later, of what younger me was thinking back then, because it's so easy to forget that. that you in another time and place, and what came to pass and what didn't, and why. In all the exercises that we did in that book, they included goals in pretty typical areas that you've heard about, the mental and your personal development areas of knowledge and education, your spiritual, your commitment in faith, moral, ethical, and spiritual aspirations, your physical, your whole physical condition and health, family, those closest to you and the quality of those relationships, social, personal interaction with others and the image you present, career, your job, business, working environment, and then finally your financial, what you want to achieve monetarily. And from my memory bank of that weekend, I remembered after one of the sessions coming back to our condo that we were all staying in, from the conference room area, and feeling distraught about ranking myself the lowest when it came to family and spiritual. And when I had come to Colorado just about a year before then, I had separated from my first husband and had not had any children and was feeling the want and need for a family to call my own. I loved my family of origin, but they were them and I was me, if that makes any sense. And we saw the world differently. However, I would say now, after having created an amazing family of my own, goal achieved, thank you very much, and thanks to my second and only next husband, Ed, for making that possible, and giving me two beautiful children, I began to see my family of origin in a new light. Perhaps life lessons and grace along the way have something to do with filling in that piece of the puzzle for me. The second category from the Goal Mind weekend that I felt duress about was a spiritual one. I told my workmates as we sat there talking about, how we scored and what we had come up with, that I sucked at spirituality. After all, I was a recovering Catholic, and didn't you have to have a religion to be spiritual? I will never forget my assistant, Sheila, who has since become a lifelong friend, shared some words with me that touched me to the core and changed my viewpoint of spirituality forever. She said, "Cheri, you're one of the most spiritual people I know. The way you love and care for our team and other people I've seen you interact with tells me how deeply rooted your spiritual nature is." Wow. I had never thought of spirituality in that way at all. And looking at the definition of spirituality, I realized there was not a mention of a particular religion. Faith, moral, ethical, and spiritual aspirations come in many shapes and forms that I have come to learn since that time. Something, I just hadn't been taught up growing up. I mean, you were either in or you were out. And that's pretty much how I learned it through the Catholic faith. And since that day of going through that program, I just have fully embraced the power of spirituality, not religion, but this spiritual nature. In fact, my morning momentum practice that I do every single day and that you'll be hearing more about in future episodes is a time for me to tap into my spiritual self every morning, to just reconnect with who I am and why I'm here on the planet. You don't need a church, I've discovered, though I do love a beautiful church. There is something peaceful and beautiful about a church. But just you and the quiet appreciation of who you are and what grace you bring to the planet can be plenty. And I will add into that is that being out in nature also is like a beautiful church as well, because it is just, nature just brings it all together. Because, if you look at it from a God perspective and you look at everything in nature, it's just overwhelming how much beauty there is on this planet, and there is a lot. Okay, so nowadays, I like to keep the following categories in mind when I'm working on my bright, shiny goals. And I recommend you choose the ones that matter most to you. You know, our categories are our own categories. But I like number one, health and well-being. I think it's really an important factor, right? Without our bodies, we're in trouble. The second one is love and home life. I think that is a grounding force that is so important. The third one is purpose and career, whatever that looks like, whether you're running your own business or working for someone else, but are you living your purpose in that career and how you're running your business, etc. The fourth one is money and abundance. Got to get it in there. It does make the world go round, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dollars and cents, but the abundance that money plays in your life or that you want it to play in your life. The next one is the amount of adventure / play that you want to have in your life. I think that's a pretty important piece, whether it's to travel or spend more time with your kids or, whatever that looks like for you, to really have that in there. And then finally, it is your spirit and your mindset and how we can continuously improve it along our way. With the new year comes new ways to look at your life and your business, keeping in mind all the bright, shiny objects all around you every single day. I want to share with you the idea behind the BSO Grow Planner from Business Victories, designed to assist you to simplify the process of your time organization and planning. This physical planner is designed to complement your electronic calendar on your phone or computer. That's the calendar that keeps you interacting with the outside world, while your BSO Grow Planner is the monthly, weekly, and daily reminder of what matters most to you from your inside world. All the things going on in your head that, once written out, clarify how you would really like for your days to unfold. For your ultimate success, each planner comes with the Grow Sessions Goals and Values online program, along with additional access to Morning Momentum's 21-day online program that will have you looking at how you start your day in a whole new way. So what do you say? Are you ready to make the road ahead of you actually take you where you want to go? Learn more at businessvictories.com/Grow Planner. And for a limited time, use the coupon code BrightShiny to get a 20% discount. And of course, all this information is located in our show notes. For many years, I was told by many self-help gurus, and I probably heard them all, I think, at this point of the game, that making $1 million and beyond was the ultimate destiny for any business and the ultimate sign of success. And yes, it has been on the top of my list of goals. However, what I have found for me is that I'm just not driven by money. And I know the importance and value in money, to be sure, but so many other things motivated me along my way, so much more as the end result and goal than money did. So I quit putting that as the carrot, because when I found that was the carrot that was dangling in front of me, I just wasn't as excited as I was of the lives that I would change or the contribution that I could make along my way. That gets me going and add some monetary gains, and that's fantastic too. But we each have different carrots. I'll just use that terminology, thinking of like a horse with a carrot. Actually, my dogs love carrots too. So looking at in that light. And, I really think about business schools teach business plans 101, right? Bankers and investors want those contrived, and I will use the word contrived because I have found along my journey most business plans can be contrived, and I bring up business plans right now because that is a goal, right? It's a goal of an idea, and they can look great on paper, but what I found that they didn't really fully step us out into the real world. The biggest problem, especially for the 1 or 2 person micro business that I work with most often, is that so much of a business plan is subjective to market conditions and more. And sure, that's true with any size business. However, a 1 or 2 person micro business is much more vulnerable than a larger business that can take the impact of things not quite working out as planned. And a contrived on paper business plan does not always walk through what it will actually take to get you there, especially from a human mindset perspective. It can make all the dollars and cents in the world, but if our mindset is in the wrong place, it's not going to get us there. And because of this, I am not a big fan, not to be confused with plan, a big fan of making the business plan your solo game. They take they being the business plan, takes well-intended entrepreneurs off course and chasing after bright, shiny objects that don't always matter, with the primary focus only being, again, that monetary bottom line. Then in turn leaves no time or money to pay attention to the bright, shiny objects that do matter a whole lot more. So, in fact, I've gone after a few bright, shiny objects along the way that I borrowed money to go after. And it would have saved me, because it looked good on paper. So I borrowed the money, went after it, and it would have saved me so much if I had really, really, really looked at the actual steps it was going to take to bring that bright, shiny object of a goal to life. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, there needs to be a plan, but I like to think of it as the bright, shiny goal plan. And you better believe it needs to be written down. It must be written down in order to fully see it coming to life. Again, this is where looking at something like what I call the idea cycle that I share in my coaching practice and will be sharing in future podcasts comes into play quite nicely to see how doable an idea really is, and having some kind of a planner system that helps you keep track of where you are on a daily basis. And your financial, what I like to call your magic financial number, needs to be your magic number. For sure, the cost of living goes up day by day, it seems, and you should stay cognizant of what you need to enjoy in life that matters most to you each and every day, right? Keep in mind, though, that there are a lot of people out there making millions of dollars that are miserable in their lives. And we've all heard how many a lottery ticket winner never found happiness with all that cash. It's nice, but it is what it is. And it's been interesting to watch since the pandemic, how many people who are upping their monetary goal by refusing to work for under $20 per hour. So, right, there's a different side of the spectrum on that. And knowing when it's not enough and that you've got to raise your standards up and say, no more, I'm not going to work for less than this. I talk to my clients about this a lot on a regular basis. Because I think we all know that, and as we show up in stores that our customer service is short, people just aren't willing to work for something that's not even close to a living wage. And as hard as it's been on all of us, especially, because you don't have people helping you like you used to, let's talk to big corporations perhaps about raising those wages, which I know many people are out there working on it. But I digress down that rabbit hole. So a quick way to begin thinking about your goals is what I like to call the be, have, achieve way of thinking. Be, who or what you want to become. Think about how you want to be as a person from day-to-day life to the extra special occasions of life. Have. What do you physically or mentally want to possess? This is the gains along the way that will take you from here to there in a very healthy way. And finally, achieve. Ask yourself, how do I want to achieve the greatest goals for my life? Here you name the actions required, because remember, life is so much more than getting to the destination. I think I've mentioned this. It's about that journey. Your goals should also be driven by what was coined years ago by Napoleon Hill as your definite chief aim, which is that life purpose, why you're here, what matters most. And in his book, Law of Success, which was a game changer for me, by the way, he talks a lot about your definite chief aim. I have spent many years along my journey studying his words that were derived from interviews that he conducted with successful people of his time in the early 1930s. I have incorporated many of his principles into the foundational curriculum I built for my mastermind groups, which I called the Victory Circles, that I have facilitated and certified other coaches to facilitate as well over the course of the last 16 years. And of course, I could not help to have them become part of my own way of thinking about success. That's what's cool about when you do things in your own business that make you a better thinker. It's such a good thing. But I modernized some of them for today's small business owner. Mr. Hill's definition is wrapped up quite well that he shares. And he said that singleness of purpose is essential for success, no matter what may be one's idea of the definition of success. Yet singleness of purpose is also a quality which may and generally does call for thought on many allied subjects. He believed, as I do as well, that just as the body needs exercise, so does the mind. And again, that pivot point that brings you back, you can think of it as having a definite chief aim as the single catalyst for what your purpose is in business and in life. And sometimes it might be different. I know I've had clients who they definitely have one definite chief aim in their personal life and one in their business. So it's just looking at it and which one matters most. Some have their business definite chief aim drive their personal life, and then vice versa. So, one can drive the other as well. And what begins to happen when you do this is that you start to see where the two worlds you live in can actually, right? Our personal life and our business life can actually intersect. What do you know about that? And can do it beautifully. That whole work-life balance thing that seems so hard, it can actually happen. And I am here to tell you that as someone who has found that work-life balance, it's a beautiful thing. It really, really is. We have a planner here at Business Victories and an online course, as was mentioned earlier here on the show. But what I love about it is that it can assist you to get closer to goals that matter to you. However, I want to ask you one question today that has a couple of parts to it that I want to leave you with this podcast, to take away from the podcast today. You ready? All right, here we go. What are the 10 things that you want to make sure that you do before you die? Some people might call them bucket list items, but it's just those life events you want to make sure happen before you die. Now, that is a date that none of us are sure about, which I guess is a good thing. We can't plan for it, so we can just plan to be living life to the fullest because we don't know when it's going to come. So what are those 10 things, those opportunities to live the life that matters most to you? The people you love and the people who you want to make a difference for while you're walking here on the earth. And then the second part of that question is, what are of those top 10? So go ahead, just, I would encourage you as we finish up the podcast here to just sit down and free write those 10. Like, what comes to you right now, what you think they are, and then go back and what are your top 3 of those 10? And this should help you to get the bright, shiny goals rolling of what you want to see ahead of you in the near future that you can start working on, maybe even as soon as today. All right, so I'm going to leave you with the bright, shiny goal poem. All right, you ready for this? Okay. Keep your pace strong, know who you are. Don't shrink back, be a star. Time is short, leaves must fall, caring for yourself above it all. Inner strength, outer gains, talking point, start the refrain. Purpose and passion, divine inner light, holds you, rocks you towards doing it right. You are you, and that will never change. Directing your fate, that you can rearrange. Stand tall in your space. Drink in the sun. Balance your tasks until each day is done. Shout from the rooftops, whisper in the night. What makes you happiest? What feels most right? Your story has many chapters, many highs mixed with some lows. Keep your head held high wherever the plot goes. So with that, my friend, let's go do this. Let's create a new day. Today, tomorrow, the day after, geared towards those bright, shiny goals that make us smile. Thanks for being here today, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Bright Shiny Object Project, available on all your favorite podcast players. To be notified of upcoming podcasts and get inspiration sent to your inbox each Monday morning, subscribe to the Victory Letter at businessvictories.com/victory letter. Remember, with the right mindset and systems in place, quite literally anything is possible.